Ever wonder if, like, your personality
Mhm.
shapes how you think?
Hmm.
We're diving into that today.
Okay.
Exploring a study that's huge, GE.
Wow.
Like over 2 million people, huge, spanning an entire century
Oh, wow.
of research on personality and cognitive ability.
A century. Wow.
So
That's a lot of data
it is.
to dig through.
It's wild.
Yeah. Fascinating area.
Yeah.
And this study by Staneka and Ones gives us I think, the most detailed picture yet
Okay.
of how these two things intertwine.
Right, because we know intelligence is important,
Sure.
but this research says,
Yeah.
hold on, personality plays a big role too.
Absolutely.
And not just in the way we might assume.
Most people kind of connect openness.
Right.
You know, that love of learning with being bright. This research confirms that.
Okay.
But the really eye-opening thing,
Right.
it's not just openness. All our personality traits,
Wow.
even neuroticism, even agreeableness,
Well,
tie into how our brains work.
okay, now that's what I call a deep dive.
It is a deep dive.
So we're going beyond those stereotypes about certain personalities being smarter.
We are.
I love it.
Yeah, let's start with neuroticism.
Okay.
Now, it's more than just being a bit anxious.
Right.
It covers things like depression, volatility, even like being suspicious.
Okay.
And what's fascinating is that different parts of neuroticism have different effects.
You're about to blow my mind, aren't you?
Well, I hope so. This research found high levels of depression were actually linked to lower performance in most cognitive areas.
Okay.
Particularly, especially when we talk about soaking up new knowledge acquisition.
That's sadly not that surprising, right? If you're dealing with depression, learning something new is probably the last thing on your mind.
Right. It's hard to, be motivated to learn when you're feeling down.
Exactly.
And it goes further. Studies show a faster cognitive decline in individuals with depression.
Oh, wow.
It really underscores that depression isn't just an emotional state.
Right.
It has real, measurable cognitive consequences.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so depression is one aspect.
Mm-hmm.
What about those who are, shall we say, easily provoked?
Okay.
Quick to anger, prone to frustration.
Yeah.
Asking for a friend, of course.
Well, tell your friend this research found a strong negative link between that kind of temperament and knowledge-based abilities.
Meaning they might find it harder to learn new things when they're seeing red?
Precisely. They might have trouble, focusing or retaining information when their emotions are running high.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's not just about accepting our personality quirks, but realizing we might have more control over our cognitive abilities than we thought.
Exactly. It's about understanding those connections and potentially finding ways to, work with our tendencies.
No, that's empowering.
It is empowering.
Okay, so we've tackled the neurotic folks.
Right.
What about the nice ones?
Okay.
Does being agreeable make you less intelligent?
Not at all. Agreeableness, like neuroticism, is multifaceted.
Okay.
The study found compassion. That empathy and concern for others was actually positively correlated with many cognitive abilities,
Intriguing.
even general intelligence.
So being kind is good for your brain.
It seems so.
I like where this is going. But hold on, isn't agreeableness also about being polite? What about that?
Interesting point.
Yeah.
This is where it gets nuanced.
Okay.
Politeness, especially compared to compassion, showed a negative correlation, particularly with fluid reasoning and, again, that knowledge acquisition piece.
Hold up. You're saying being polite could hinder your ability to learn. Why would that be?
One theory suggests that politeness might actually require more cognitive effort.
Yeah.
We're constantly self-monitoring, making sure we don't offend,
Right.
and that uses up mental resources that could be used for learning and problem solving.
So it's like our brains have limited bandwidth. And sometimes those social graces eat up more than we realize.
Exactly.
Fascinating. Okay, shifting gears a bit. What about those personality types who are all about order and structure? The super organized list-making folks, surely they're wired for cognitive success.
All right. You're thinking about conscientiousness,
Yeah.
and you're onto something.
Day.
This study really dug into its different aspects.
Okay.
For example, industriousness, that drive to work hard, to really apply yourself, that showed a strong positive link with a lot of cognitive abilities, especially knowledge acquisition.
So all those late-night study sessions do pay off. It's not just about willpower. It actually changes how our brains work.
Exactly. It really supports that growth mindset idea. The more you challenge your mind, the stronger it gets. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Being orderly, while helpful,
Yeah.
didn't have the same impact across the board as industriousness did.
So it's less about having a perfectly organized desk and more about putting in the mental effort, really engaging deeply with what you're learning.
Yes. Effort and dedication seem to be key here.
Interesting.
Now, you might be surprised to learn that even extroversion, often associated with social butterflies,
Yeah.
has ties to cognitive ability.
Wait, really? I always thought extroversion was more about social skills, not necessarily brain power. Tell me more.
Well, this study found that the activity facet of extroversion,
Right.
that energetic, driven engagement with the world, was strongly connected to a whole range of abilities, including general intelligence and, you guessed it, knowledge acquisition.
So it's not just about being outgoing.
Mhm.
It's about that active pursuit of experience, that constant seeking out of new things and challenges.
Exactly. That constant engagement could be what fuels cognitive growth.
Okay.
It's like your brain is getting a workout
Right.
by constantly processing new information.
I love that. It really flips the script on how we usually think about extroversion.
It does.
Now, we can't talk about personality and cognitive ability without discussing openness.
Right.
We already touched on its link to intelligence,
Yeah,
but did this study uncover anything new?
it did. We know that openness in general is connected to cognitive ability.
Right.
What's fascinating is how the two main aspects of openness,
Okay.
intellect and experiencing,
Yeah.
played different roles.
Interesting. So even the type of openness we have can affect our strengths.
It seems so.
Tell me more about those two aspects.
Intellect, as you might guess,
Yeah.
is that straightforward love of learning, that intellectual curiosity.
Right.
Experiencing, however, is about being open to feelings,
Okay.
to imagination, think, creativity,
Okay.
emotional depth.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
So how do those two stack up?
As expected, intellect had a strong positive correlation with a bunch of cognitive abilities.
Right.
Experiencing was a bit more nuanced.
Okay.
It showed weaker links in some areas.
Yeah.
But here's the cool part. It had a surprisingly strong connection with verbal abilities and knowledge.
So even if you're not a bookworm, being open to new experiences, embracing your emotions, maybe even spending a little time daydreaming, could actually boost your verbal skills.
That's the takeaway. It suggests there isn't just one path to cognitive strength. Right.
It's not all about being book smart, but about being open to the world's complexity and richness.
I love that. It's so much more inclusive than the old openness equals intelligence idea.
It is much more nuanced than that.
This research makes me wonder, though, about those broader personality patterns.
Yeah.
We've talked about individual traits,
Yeah.
but did the study look at those higher order traits like that general factor personality I've heard about?
They did. They found that these higher order traits also play a role, though not as strongly as some of those individual facets we've discussed.
Okay, so fill me in. What are these higher order traits all about?
Well, one in particular is called stability socialization, sometimes referred to as factor alpha. It basically reflects how well we function in society, how well we get along with others, follow social norms, that sort of thing. So it's like the good citizen factor.
Yeah.
And that's tied to cognitive ability, too.
It is.
Yeah.
But the connections were weaker than what we see with some individual traits, particularly within neuroticism and conscientiousness.
Right.
It might be that those individual facets have more specific effects,
Okay.
while factor alpha is a broader influence.
Makes sense. What other higher order traits did they explore?
Another interesting one is called plasticity, also known as factor beta. Think of it as the adventure seeker factor.
Okay.
It combines elements of extroversion and openness,
Okay.
that curiosity,
Right.
trying new things, being open to different views.
So someone high in plasticity is always up for a new experience, a new way of looking at things. And that's linked to cognitive ability as well.
You got it. It seems being open to experience in that way is helpful. Yeah.
But that focused intellectual curiosity, that drive for knowledge, seems to be a supercharger for cognitive growth.
This is all so fascinating. It really challenges those old stereotypes about which personalities are smart or not.
It does.
What's clear is that it's much more complex than we often assume.
Exactly. This research highlights the importance of looking at the whole person, not just isolated traits.
Right.
And that brings up a crucial question. Why does all this even matter?
Right. We've covered a ton of ground here.
We have.
But what's the takeaway for our listeners? Why should they care about this link between personality and cognitive ability?
First and foremost, it helps us move beyond those simplistic stereotypes about personality.
Okay.
We tend to put certain traits on a pedestal when it comes to intelligence.
Right.
But the reality is far more nuanced?
Each trait has its own strengths and weaknesses, all interacting in fascinating ways.
It's like we're looking at a giant, intricate puzzle, and we're only just beginning to understand how the pieces fit together.
Precisely. And this knowledge could change how we approach education and career guidance.
Oh, interesting.
Instead of fixating on narrow measures of intelligence,
Right.
we can recognize that different personality strengths can lead to success in different ways.
It's about finding the right fit for each individual, recognizing their unique strengths.
Exactly.
I love that it's so much more empowering.
It is, and this research gives us a framework for understanding those strengths.
Okay.
But of course, with any groundbreaking research, it's not just about the answers we have now, it's about the new questions that emerge.
That's such an important point. This study relied on existing research, which is incredibly valuable, but it also throws open the door to a world of new possibilities.
Sure.
Imagine the discoveries waiting to be made as scientists delve deeper into these connections, especially with longitudinal studies that track individuals over time.
The possibilities are truly exciting.
Right.
Think about the potential for personalized learning,
Yeah.
tailored mental health interventions, even career development strategies that leverage these insights.
It's like this study has given us a flashlight in a dark room. We're starting to see the outlines, the potential, but there's so much more to illuminate.
And that's where things get really interesting.
Right.
The study opens up so many avenues for future research. Imagine exploring how these links between personality and cognitive ability play out in different cultures, different age groups, even different professions.
What if we could identify those specific personality tendencies that might be holding us back in certain areas and then develop targeted strategies to cultivate the traits that would help us thrive?
Now you're talking. That's the power of this research.
Yeah.
It's not just about understanding ourselves better. It's about using that understanding to unlock our full potential.
And that's what I find so inspiring about this field of study. It reminds us that we're not fixed, that our personalities and our cognitive abilities are capable of growth and change throughout our lives.
Exactly. It's a message of hope and empowerment.
It is.
And it all starts with understanding those fascinating connections between who we are and how we think.
It is. It really is.
And that brings to mind another intriguing aspect of this field, the idea of a general factor of personality, or GFP.
Wait, GFP, what's that all about?
It's a bit of a mystery, actually.
Okay.
The GFP is this idea that there's one overarching personality trait,
Right.
like a master switch,
Right.
influencing all those other traits we've been discussing.
So if you score high on this GFP, you're basically personality royalty, winning at life.
Well, not quite. It's a bit controversial.
Okay.
The GFP mainly shows up in self-reported personality tests,
Okay.
not so much when others observe us.
Right.
This makes some researchers think it might be more about how we see ourselves than a real underlying trait.
So maybe we all want to believe we're good people deep down, so we rate ourselves more positively. I can see that happening.
Exactly. But here's the other side. Some researchers believe the GFP does reflect something real,
Okay.
like our overall social effectiveness or emotional intelligence, how well we navigate social situations and manage our emotions.
Okay, so the jury's still out on that one.
Yeah, it's an ongoing debate in the field.
It's an ongoing debate. I like it.
It is.
Keeps it interesting.
Precisely. Now, before we wrap up,
Yeah.
I want to circle back to something you said earlier about the potential for growth and change.
Yeah.
That really resonated with me.
Me too. It's empowering to think we're not stuck with the personalities we have, right?
Absolutely. And that's where understanding these links between personality and cognitive ability becomes truly powerful.
Okay.
It can help us identify areas where we might be inadvertently holding ourselves back and then explore strategies to develop those cognitive strengths.
It's like we're not just uncovering fascinating information about personality. We're opening up a whole new toolkit for self-improvement.
I couldn't have said it better myself. This deep dive has been a journey of exploration.
It has.
And I hope our listeners are feeling just as inspired as I am to keep learning and keep growing.
This has been such a thought-provoking conversation.
It has.
I feel like I have a whole new understanding of myself and the people around me.
Yeah, me too.
It's a reminder that we're complex beings,
We are.
and there's always more to discover about how our minds work.
Absolutely.
For our listeners, we'll leave you with this. As you go about your day, pay attention to those personality quirks, those habits of mind. What if they're not just personality, but clues to unlocking even greater cognitive potential? Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those minds engaged.